Hey there. So in this video, I'll show you how we built a no-code AI competitor price tracking system in N8N. We built this system for an e-commerce brand that promises their customers to have the lowest prices on the market. So this system checks prices on all the competitors several times a day, lays out the prices in a Looker Studio dashboard, and notifies the company through Slack whenever a competitor has a lower price on a product. And in this video, I'll show you a demo and a step-by-step breakdown of the N8N automation, show you how you can scrape e-commerce websites, even the heavily protected ones, and show you how to build a Looker Studio dashboard to visualize data. I'll build it all from scratch so you can learn how you can build something like this yourself, and the template will be available in my community. If you don't know me yet, I'm Ben. I've been building and selling AI agents since 2023. I also run a community with over 1,000 founders, professionals, and AI builders. And if you're a business looking to adopt AI into your business, you can also book us in for a free call in the description below. So first, I'll show you a quick demo and an overview of the N8N automation and the Looker Studio dashboard. Then I'll build the entire system from scratch so you can learn how to build something like this yourself. And if you're interested, the template will also be available in my community. Now, for obvious reasons, I can't show the actual client build, but I recreated the system in a slightly simpler way here for myself. So I basically took an example here with Nike. So in this case, in our demo, Nike is our brand, and we are trying to track our competitors to make sure that our products have the lowest prices, right? So we have a simple Google Sheets here, right, with the product URLs of all the products we want to track, the product names, and the product price. Now, just put in a random price because I'm just going to run the demo right now. So this will be updated anyway. Now, of course, I have 5 examples here, but you can add as many as you want here. And in these other 2 sheets here, we have the competitors, right, with the same layout, right? We have the product URLs with the product names and the product prices. And the same here for finish line, right? Another one, product URL, product name, and product price. Now, for the actual client, we had 7 or 8 competitors. It's easy to add if you need to. And also, of course, they were tracking lots of products, right? So more than 100. And we ran this system twice a day for them. So you can imagine quite a lot of volume. That's why we also build it in N8N, because N8N is the most cost efficient of these no-code automation softwares. So let me very quickly show you the Looker Studio dashboard. So we also gave them a dashboard. Again, this is a little bit of a simpler version than what we delivered, but you get the idea. So here we have just a bar chart with the prices, right? So our price and the competitors' prices, and a table with the same, right, where they can also directly access the URLs and see the difference in price between the different competitors. So here we have the N8N workflow. So let me just run it. So as you can see, this top one basically scrapes the website of ourselves, in this case, Nike, right? And it uses a simple scraper here. Then it cleans up that scrape data a little bit, and here it extracts the price with a simple LLM model, right? And then it updates the price inside of the Google Sheet. And here we have the competitors, right? Now you can see the competitors are a little bit more complicated, have a few more steps involved. So basically what we're doing here again is we extracting the URLs from the Google Sheet, right? We split it, all the different URLs, because we're actually going to loop over each URL separately. Now, why do we do that? Because first of all, many of these e-commerce websites have heavy anti-scraping protection usually. So it's not straightforward to scrape these websites. So first of all, what we want to do is not request too many URLs at the same time, because that usually results in a block or errors, right? So we're looping over each URL separately, giving it some time before we do the next one, right? And the second thing we have done here is we have a way more advanced scraper. Actually, here for Nike, we didn't need it. We can get away with a very simple scraper, but for these other websites, they have a lot of anti-scraping methods in place. So that's why we're using a more advanced scraper, which I'm going to show you in a second too. And you can see these take a little bit more time too, because we added a delay in there, because many of these websites are rendered through JavaScript, and you can only get the content from those pages if you actually add in a delay, right? I'm going to go in detail about this scraper and how to set it up later in this video. So basically what it does here, it scrapes that website, right? It cleans up that data again, right? Here it extracts the price with a simple LLM model. I use Google Gemini because it's free, right? The 2.0 Flash experimental is free for now. Then we update the sheet, right? Then we get the same price from our Nike one, right? So we can actually compare which one is higher or lower, right? So to make sure our competitor doesn't have a lower price, and that's what this language model step does. And if it's a lower price, we send a notification on Slack. And if not, we loop over and we do the same process again, right? So it basically goes over each of these products separately. And once it has done this second competitor, it will go on and do the third competitor. You can see, I think it's in the last one right now, but we can check out the dashboard. So if we go in Nike, it was already updated, as you can see, right? We have 140. Then we have sporting goods, right? You can see he updated the first 3 already. So we should have gotten a Slack message notification too, because there was, yeah, you can see. So there are quite a there are quite a few products with a lower price, as you can see, right? Although it's 1 cent, but yes. So I guess it's at the last product. Yeah, you can see. And now you can see it goes to the third competitor. Now I'll speed up the video quickly because this will take another few minutes. All right, so it was finished. Right, so you can see we got all the prices updated. Finish line, sporting goods and Nike. Now there's quite a few lower prices from the competitors actually. So I think we've gotten in, yeah, we've gotten in many notifications. But I can show you now the Looker Studio dashboard too. I think it only updates every 15 minutes normally, so we have to do it manually here. But you can see it was updated. And here in the pricing table too. So you get the idea. Let me now show you how to build this from scratch. So first of all, if you're new to N8N, I know most of my content has been around Relevance AI and Make.com. So if you're new to N8N, which I doubt if you've been on YouTube for the last week/months, it's getting a lot of hype, and honestly, it's well deserved in my opinion. There's a few big advantages with N8N. I've been experimenting with it for the last couple of months. We're using it more and more for our client builds right now. And I think it's a great platform. There's a few big advantages of using N8N. First of all, they were traditionally more this workflow automation tool, more like Make.com, right? And therefore, we have a very strong logic-based automation sort of capabilities inside of this system. But they've also heavily invested in AI agents, right? So we sort of have that combination inside of one platform, which is really powerful. Second of all, it's generally a lot cheaper to run than any other of these other softwares. And thirdly, we have a few more options of customization too. Now, a small little downside is that we have less native integrations than with a platform like Make.com, for example. I think Make.com has like 2,600 and and N8N maybe 400 or 500. So we do have to work sometimes with more custom APIs. But the big and most important integrations they do have. Now, it's also a little bit more technical, but if you've been working with Make.com or Relevance AI, I think you get the hang of it pretty quickly, and it makes intuitively a lot of sense, in my opinion. That's why I also do this sort of build from scratch type video. I know many of you have been asking me to do more of these types of videos. So by following along, if you're new to this, I think it can help you get the hang of this pretty fast. Now, first we have to add in a trigger. Which is a little bit different than a platform like Make.com, for example, where we can directly put it onto the first module. In N8N, we actually have to add in a separate trigger node or module, right? So in this case, we want to run it twice a day. So we go on a schedule, right? And here we can decide when the trigger interval, right? Which in this case, we're going to do hours, right? And we're going to run it every 12 hours. So we run it twice a day, right? And here, this is a nice thing in N8N too. You always have this test step option, right, to see that everything goes well, right? So that's how we set up the trigger. Then first, of course, we're going to do Nike, right? Our own brand, right? So first we want to start with the Google Sheets, right? To, of course, retrieve all the product URLs we want to scrape to get the prices from, right? So in this case, we're going to select get rows in Sheets, right? And if you don't know, in N8N, we basically have always, with the nodes, we have this sort of setup where on the left side, we have the inputs where basically we have all the data from the previous modules or nodes in the workflow, right? And in the output, we see what happens if we test the step and what this module or node put out, right? I think intuitively that makes a lot of sense because when you set up the configurations of these nodes or modules, a lot of times you need these variables, right, from the previous nodes. So we have the Google Sheets here, right? If you have not signed in, you can just create new credential here, sign in Google, and it will be connected. Right now, in this case, we want to go for get rows, but you have other options. And we go from list, so we get all our Google Sheets. In this case, Price Monitor demo. And of course, you want to choose the Nike one. Now, we can also filter, right? But as this is not a lot of information, I can keep it like this. And you can see here, we get the results back, right? So we got all the product URLs back, the product names, right? So you can also display it in a JSON or in a schema, which is quite nice. So that's all good. Now, of course, we want to scrape these product URLs, right, to get the price from. Now, there are a few ways to do scraping, right, and web scraping in general. I'm actually going to release, maybe it's already released actually on my YouTube channel, a full tutorial on web scraping. So I'm not going to go in too much detail in this one. If you want to know more, check out my other video on scraping. But the easiest way and the most straightforward way to scrape is with a simple HTTP request, right? And an HTTP request, basically what it does is it requests a website to, it requests from a website the HTML, right? Just like a normal browser would do. If you type in Nike.com, right? You're basically requesting to Nike.com the HTML, right? And that's what this module does exactly, right? So in the URL, we can just map in the product URL, and that's how it works in N8N, right? We can just drag it in, right? And that's it. That's all you require. So again, this is the cheapest and most straightforward way of scraping, but it's also the most unreliable one, right? Because many websites have some anti-scraping protection, and basically whenever they have that, this won't work, right? So this works for most websites, any landing page, personal blog, most of those websites, it works. But as soon as the website has some anti-scraping policies in place, or maybe has JavaScript rendering, which a lot of sites have too, then this won't work, right? So you always have to test if this one actually works. And if not, you'd have to go with another type of scraping, which I'm going to show you in a second. Because surprisingly, Nike, we can actually use this method, because normally e-commerce websites have some protection, and therefore usually this HTTP request doesn't work. For example, the two competitors I'm going to show you later, this method won't work, right? And it's usually because either they can detect that it's not a real browser, because of course you're not mimicking a real browser here, right? Or they block too many requests from the same IP. Some websites have JavaScript rendering, right? Which means we can basically not retrieve the HTML right away, right? We have to wait for the code to load. And there are some other CAPTCHAs, etc., things they can have in place to block it, right? So it's a simple scraping method, but won't work for a lot of websites. But in this case, for Nike, it does work. So we can just click here on test step, and you'll see here in the output that we get back the HTML, right? Again, in JSON and in schema, right? And you can see it did it for all the 5 product URLs, right? We had in our, so that's another thing in N8N, right? Because it detected we have 5 product URLs from the sheet, it automatically looped over each one and did each one right away, right? Which is a little bit different than make.com too. So now we got the HTML, but as the HTML is quite messy, we can clean it up a bit, and we can do that with the Markdown, right? So in the Markdown, basically we can go HTML to Markdown, and here again we swipe in the variable, right? So we get the HTML, right? And then we can add an option here, and we can choose ignore elements, right? Because HTML comes with a lot of messy sort of data, for example, image tags, right, which usually contain large URLs, etc. We don't want to overload our language model with too much noise, so we can filter it out a little bit here. So for example, if I type in image, it will take out and ignore all the image elements, right? You can add more, but in this case, I'll just do image, and you'll see already that it comes back a little bit cleaner. Right? You can see it's still quite messy, but a little bit cleaner, right? So that's the Markdown. Now we want to actually extract the price from the website, right? So we use a simple LLM step, right? Language model. So in NADN, you could just use the basic LLM chain, right? And the way this works here is you can automatically connect it to a chat trigger node. So if you've connected to a chat trigger, then it automatically puts in that input field. But in this case, we want to define it below. And the nice thing here in NADN too is we can drag in the data right away, right? So this will be basically added to our prompt right away, right? Which is the HTML, right? And then what we can do here is add the prompt. And in this case, we could just add only a system prompt, because all we have to do is extract the price, right, from this HTML, which is quite a simple task for most of these language models. Extracting data, they're usually very good at that. So we don't need an extremely long prompt. So we can go with something like role and objective, right? Let's say we can go here in expression. So we have some more space to write. So you are a world-class price extractor, right, from the scraped website, Your job is to extract the price of the product and output only the price, nothing else, right? No summary, no explanation, nothing but the price. I usually say this to avoid the language model explaining itself. Like first having a sentence, something like the price I found in the HTML is this. No, we only want the price, right? So that's usually why I say, nothing, no summary, no explanation, nothing but the price, right? That usually is enough for the language model to only output the price. Maybe we can add in don't output the price with a dollar sign, right? So we only get the price. Now, what we want to do also is structured output. So we get it into a single variable right away. So in NADN, we have two options here, right? We can go with the model. First of all, we can choose the model. Now, in this case, I'm going to choose Google Gemini because the experimental model is actually free. So I'll use the 2.0 Flash, right? We also have the thinking one, but as this is a simple task, we can use the 2.0 Flash, right? And here we have selected the language model, right? And then we can also here require specific output format. And this basically allows for structured output, right? If you know it in make.com maybe, or in Relevance AI, this is like structured output, right? And then we can add in another option here, right? Structured output parser, right? And you can see we can do it from a JSON. Now, all we want right now, right, is the price, right? So here we can define the name of the variable we want to put out, and this we leave empty, of course, for the language model to fill out, right? And this is how we get this output into this variable, right? So we can test it. And there's an error in subnode structured output. I added in a comma, right? There you go. The last one can never have a comma, right? So now we can test step again. And now you can see output, right? You can see price. So it extracted all 5 prices. And now, of course, we want to update our Google Sheet with the new prices. So we're going to add the sheets again. Right. And now we can go with update, right? Update a row. Again, we choose the same one. Now we have to select the column to match on, which we can use any really in this case because it's the same sheet, right? So we can go with product URL. Then we have to find the Google Sheets here, right? And map it, right? Product URL, right? Of course, the product name, we don't want to lose that, right? And lastly, the new price, right? Which we take from this last one. And that's it. Now we can test the step. And it's updated. So that's it for the first one. Pretty straightforward. Now for the second one, it's going to be a little bit more difficult because these other competitor websites don't let us scrape this easily. So how do we set up this? Same thing, right? We go with the sheets, but now we're going to, of course, get the rows from the other sheets. So first we're going to do sporting goods. right? And now we're going to use a split module because we want to run each URL separately. Again, as I explained before, right? Because these websites don't let us scrape that easily. If we put too many requests at the same time, or 5 at the same time, for example, we might get blocked, right? That's why we want to loop over them and give some time and space between the requests, right? That's why we're splitting it out first, right? So it turns the list. So here we go with the product URL, right? Include, we don't need any other fields here, right? You can include other fields, right? But this is it. So you can see it split it up, right? And now we're going to use a loop module, right? Exactly like I said, like loop over items. So we'll automatically loop over each product URL. So you can see the loop was created, right? And you can see we have the loop here and the done. So basically it will loop over all the items in the list, in this case, the URLs, right? And here we can create the loop, right? And we can also decide a different path for when it's done. Now, in this case, we don't need anything. It can just stop, right? So we can just delete this one. And now, of course, inside of the loop, we're going to add the web scraper. Now, the web scraping, as I said before, for these competitors, the easy way of web scraping doesn't work for them, right? I can show you very quickly because these websites have some scraping protections in place, right? So, for example, if I try that one, right, you'll see that it won't work. Right, you see your request is invalid or cannot be processed, right? Access forbidden, right? Because many of these e-commerce, again, they have some anti-scraping protection in place, right? So what do you do in this case? Now, there are many of these APIs, sort of specialized or advanced web scraping APIs available. Now, there are a few of them. There's a good one, which is called Scrape Ninja in API-Fi, but the one that works by far the best for us is Scrapify. I can show you quickly. So Scrapify, as you can see here, the ultimate data collection APIs for developers, right? Effortlessly collect web data with battle-tested APIs that scale as you grow. Right, powered through scraping challenges using intelligent tools that save time and maximize results, right? So basically what these APIs have, they have these built-in tools, right? Like automatic anti-bot bypass, right? Proxy rotation, right? So it rotates over different IPs, rendered JavaScript, and it sort of mimics a real web browser, right? So they have all of these things in place to bypass a lot of these protections, right? So if you make an account, you actually have to wait, I think, 24 hours before they accept you. But once they have, you can go to your dashboard, right? And here you can go to API Player. And here in API Player, you can basically test any link, right? So, for example, we can try it out. And then here you see, I can, for example, try it out first in here, right? And here you have all these sort of tools in place to bypass, right? So you can choose geolocation, so you can select from where you want to scrape. Some websites have limitations if you scrape from abroad, for example. You have the anti-bot, which is already, selected, right? Anti-scraping protection, right? Then you have cloud browser, right? This is the JavaScript rendering. This one is really important. And here you can also decide the delay, right? Time to wait before extracting content. This is often why these normal scrapers don't work, right? Because it takes time before the actual content to load. And yeah, you have many other sort of options here. Usually the default state that they already have usually works, but if not, you can play around with it a bit. But again, I'll make a full video on scraping soon. So if you want to know this in more detail, check out that video. And then for prices, it is quite cheap actually. As you can see here, I think 200,000 credits is $30 a month, and I think 1,000,000 credits is $100. Now for this client, I think we had the $100 plan, so 1,000,000 credits. But with that amount of credits, you could run this system on hundreds of products, literally, I think 5 times a day or something. So you can see it was able to scrape it, right? And uh, you can see states code 200, right? So you see that this one was able to scrape it. Now, how do we set this up in N8N? So we have to go here in curl, right? And we copy this to the clipboard. And then we're going to change this, right? And we're going to import curl, right? We add this in, and now we have to, You can see automatically it added in the URL, right? And now we have to manually add in some query parameters. Now, this is going to be a little bit of a manual job, but basically what we do is, sorry, we're here. We have to take these values here, right? These last 4 values, right? And add them in the query parameters there, right? So let me do quickly. And the last one is the URL, right? Where we have to add in the variable, right? So URL, right? And basically these parameters basically are like the settings, right? All the sort of anti-scraping methods we want to implement. So that's it. So let's test it. All right, we got it back. All right, so good. It was scraped, as you can see. Now we can add in one more here, which is just to, because we get a lot of info back, we can just map only the important one. So we can show we only need the HTML, right? So let me see, where is it? Here we go, content. Right, and then we can just call it data. All right, we got it back. So then we can add in a markdown just to clean it up again a bit again, right? Same thing, show data. All right, we just use this one. And then we just clean it up a bit, right? So we do the same thing. Again, you can add more here, right? But we just keep it simple for now. All right. We got the clean data back now, and now we can basically use the same module, right, as we did before to extract the price, right? So you can just copy and paste this, right? And then of course we have to map it to the new value. Right, but we can, oh, I already did it automatically, but yeah, here we go. Data, right? You can see we already have the prompt there, which already works for this one too. So we can just test dev. And we got the price back. So perfect. It works. Then what we're going to do is first update the sheet, right, with the new price. Right. Again, we can use the same one actually here. Right. Of course, we have to change the sheet. Right. So we go to sporting goods. Oh, sporting goods. Right. And of course, we have to change the product URL to map. We can probably better go with product name. Right, which is, so we map the product name from all the way at the beginning from the Google Sheets, right? So product name, and we add in the product URL, right? And then we have to add in the new price, right? I don't know if I did that already. Yes, add the new price, right? So this basically makes it update, right? The old price, right? Now you can also add a new one, right? If you want to track the progression of prices over a specific date or time, right? But in this case, we're just updating it. So that's it. So we can test it. And you can see it updated it. So all good, works now. So now we want to actually compare it against Nike's price, right? And if it's lower, right, we want to notify us through Slack, right? So how do we do that? So we can just use another Sheets module, right? And then now we're actually gonna get rows again, right? And we're gonna get the same row from the Nike one. So Nike, right? And we filter by the product name, right? To make sure we have the same product, right? As the one from sporting goods, right? So we can just filter by product name. Right, and that should work. Right, now we get the price right here for the Nike product. Now we have to add in one more language model step where we actually compare the two prices, right? So, and if it's lower, right, we want to notify us through Slack. So again, right, we go here with define below. Right now, I can just add in another system prompt. It's not a very difficult one, right? So we can say role objective. We go expression. You are a world-class price analyzer, right? Your job is to look at the two prices below. If the competitor price is lower than our price, please output, right, only if the price is equal or higher. Let's just be very clear. If the price of the competitor is equal or higher, only output higher. Right, now we're going to use that as a filter. And we're just adding the two variables, right? Or just let's finish it off. No summary, no explanation. Right, then we're adding the two. So for example, I usually use these to have headers, right? So we can go with our price, which of course we fetch from that last one, right? And we can add that at the bottom, right? Our price, and then we can go with our competitor's price, right? And then we can go with the output, right? That's it. And then of course we have to add in our language model. I can use Google Gemini again. And we add in the structured output. So structured output parser, and in this case, we can call it result. All right, result. We leave this empty. All right, now we can run it quickly. Again, make the same mistake. So now it should work. Good. And the result is higher, right? Is that correct? So yes, this is the price from a competitor. This is the Nike's price. So that's correct, right? And then we can use a simple if module, right, for a condition. So if it is higher, of course, we don't have to do anything. So we can go if the result, right, is lower, right? We can then, for example, add in a Slack notification, right? So send a Slack message. Right, if you want to know how to connect Slack, right, you do have to add inside of your Slack, right? You have to add in N8N, right, as an app, right? Whenever you've connected it, you'll find N8N inside of your Slack there in integrations. And whenever you've added it, you can send Slack messages to that channel, right? So I could go, I can execute this, right? I could choose the channel, right? I'll just right, random one, and here we can define, hey, you have a new, right, you have price alert, right? Price alert, right? And of course here you can add in the variables again, right? So that's it. And then what we can do is loop back, right? If not, loop back. And of course that one also has to loop back, right? And then once it's done, when it's looped over all of these items, it will stop this, right? And then it will go to the next flow, which we haven't built, but basically we can now just duplicate this entire thing again with shift, right, for the next competitor. Right, now you can make this nicer and embed it all in one, but to keep it simple, right, now I'm not going to do it all right now. You've gotten the idea, right? But we can just basically copy all of this, right? And do the same for any other new competitor we want to add. Of course, you would have to map the Google Sheets again, but that's it. And that's how NA then works. It goes from top to bottom, right? So we always first do this part, then this part, and this part. So that's it. That's how you create this system. Now, let me show you very quickly how to create a Looker Studio dashboard. I think there are many interesting use cases for that too. We use it a lot in our agency to visualize data, basically. So let me just create it from blank so you get an idea. So the way Looker Studio works is we can connect it with data sources, right? Now, in this case, we use Google Sheets as a data source, but we have many other options, right? Google Ads, etc. So what you do here in Google Sheets is you select the sheets, right? Now, you would have to select each of the separate sheets separately, right? Add it separately. So I'll add Nike, right? Then I'll add the other ones too. Sporting goods. All right, and lastly, Finish Line. Now, let's say we want a bar chart, right? So we can click here on add a chart, right? And then we go with a bar chart, right? Simple bar chart. So you can select it here. You can make it bigger if you want. Right now, as you can see here, for the chart, we have the data source we can select, right? So we have the 3 data sources that I just added, right? And here we have the dimensions and the metrics. Now, the issue here, of course, is we only visualizing the Nike sheet, right? So we actually have to create a blended data, right? So you can also do it here at the top, right? But basically what we're doing is going to combine these 3 sheets into one blended data source, right? To be able to represent all of these inside of one chart. So we can call this one Nike, right? And then the dimensions, right? We're going to add everything we need to add, which is the product name and the product URL. And then the metrics, of course, because the metrics is what we want to show, is going to be the price, right? Product price. Then we're going to join it in with another table, right? Which is going to be the Finish Line table, right? And we're going to do the same for that one. So we're going to put the price in the metrics, right? Not in the dimensions, right? And we also have to configure the join, right? So as you can see here, tell us how rows from all tables on the left and the table to the right are combined. So we want to make sure that we only map and represent products that are available in both, right? So how do we do that? Is first of all, you have to tell them how these tables are related, right? So what are the same fields inside of these tables so it can know how to map them together. Now, in our case, the product names are the same, right? The URLs, of course, are different and the prices too. So we only want the names, right? And that's how basically how it maps it. And then we only want to combine the ones that are the same, right? So we can click here on inner, right? And then we do the same, right? We call this Finish Line. And then we do the same for the last table, which is sporting goods. We call it sporting goods. Again, we add the product price to the metrics, right? And we do the same for this one. Because we don't want to merge the prices, right? Because we want to represent each price separately. So we click on save, and now we have a blended data source, right? Now we still have to change this, right? For the dimensions, we want to add the product name. Let me check. We can take the product name because they're mapped, right? They're joined together, right? And then for the metrics, we want to add in all the prices, right? So we already have Nike, but we also want to add in Finish Line, right? Product price and sporting goods, right? You can see they're all called product price right now, so we can actually rename them here. We can go Nike or our price, right? And this is how we change the name, right? So Finish Line, price, and sporting goods, price, right? That's it. Pretty straightforward. Of course, we can change the style if we want to, right? The width, etc. But yeah, you get the idea. you can play around with this. It's quite interesting, and it looks quite good. And it updates it automatically, I think, every 15 minutes, uh, as long as it's connected, of course. And then, of course, you could also add a table and other stuff. I'll show you the table very quickly. So add a chart, right? And here we can go with a table, for example. But you see, you have many other options, like also scorecard, right? But let's go with a table. Now we do the same thing. We use the blended data source, of course, and now we're going to add in everything in the dimensions because we want to map out everything there, right? So we can go first Nike, right? Product price, product URL, and the same for finish line, product price, product URL, and sporting goods. But again, we can make this a little bit bigger. And then we can even add in calculations, right? So for example, we want to display how much more expensive the competitors' products are. We can just click here on plus, right? And we can add a calculated field. So let's say difference, right? Finish line and Nike, right? So we just go, let's say price, right? And you'll see the values appear automatically here, right? Product price. So you can go, for example, finish line and then minus, right? And we do the same. And then we add in Nike, for example. Right, and now we have another field there, right? With the difference. Now you can see it's the same price, so difference is 0. But yeah, you get the idea. So that's it. I think some interesting use cases for these dashboards. Very useful skill to have, I think. And it really is not rocket science with Looker Studio to make these dashboards. And clients love them usually. So highly recommend. You can see it was updated now with the 5 products. But that's it for this video. A little bit longer. Let me know if it was too slow or if you liked it like this. Also, if you got any value out of this video, I highly appreciate a like, subscribe, and maybe a comment. And thank you so much for watching. I hope to see you in the next one. Bye.